Alright guys, how's it going? It's Coach JG here, um, out in the mountains, but I want to break down this video because I saw this Bianca Andreescu injured again, and that got me thinking a lot about avoiding injury. How can you avoid injury? What are the keys to avoiding injury? And you see this a lot with, I'm disappointed to see a lot of the best athletes. Kevin Durant is the biggest example of this when they let him play in the finals a couple years ago and his ankle blew up. So the keys to avoiding injury for an athlete in terms of your training, I got three keys that I want to break down. The first is movement rotation, working in a variety of movements. So whatever sport you're playing is so repetitive. Tennis is such repetitive movements for the hips, such repetitive movements for the shoulders, that what you want to do is provide the body with other opportunities to move in different realms. So if you're, I'll keep using that example, a tennis player, you might want to mix in some yoga. I think all athletes should probably mix in some yoga. But yoga is something where you're doing small, controlled movements and you're moving muscle groups slower. You're moving them slower in different varying patterns. So that can be very healing in terms of stopping doing something repetitive, doing the opposite motion, or working in different planes of movement that you don't usually do. And we rotate movement. So with almost all my athletes, we'll get out of movement, say in our training. Say we use a goblet squat. We might do a goblet squat 2 weeks in a row. We might build on it 3 weeks in a row. After 3 weeks, we're gonna rotate, and we might go into a walking lunge. We might go into a front squat, but we might change stance. But we're building the same movement. We're building strength. That's what we do there for. That's why we're in there for strength and conditioning. But we're rotating the movements so the body isn't constantly under the same stresses. The same tissues aren't under the same stressors. So even in your training, even in your strength conditioning, you should be rotating movements. You shouldn't be attacking the same movements constantly. That's going to lead to injury. Now your workouts. You want to treat your workouts as another now your workouts. You want your workouts to be stressors, as in they're causing you to get stronger. They're causing you to make progress. I am stressing my athletes when we work out, but depending on time of the season, depending on how intense your practice schedule is, workouts are a complement. Strength and conditioning workouts for athletes are a complement to that. So you don't want it to be too much of a stressor, and sometimes it just needs to be therapeutic. Sometimes it just needs to be something that builds a little bit of muscle tone, gets you feeling, and you leave the gym feeling better. That is the goal of certain sessions that I do with my athletes. But you can't be going to the gym and killing yourself. You can't be going to the gym and killing yourself because take the basketball player, for example. You're practicing twice a day, then you have a game on Friday. That takes so much out of you. If you're after a game, if you're doing a strength conditioning session, it needs to be fairly light. It can't be something that's going to dig a deeper hole for your body, because the hole gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and whether it's psychologically taxing or physically taxing, that leads to injury eventually. So strength and conditioning sessions, extra workouts, need to be more therapeutic and recovery focused than they do stressful, and I'm going to go in the gym and kill myself and that's going to make me better. For an athlete, that's not going to work in a strength and conditioning program for an athlete. Third, got to make sure that you're doing this. Make sure that you're reading the movements, or you at least know the common injuries in your sport, and then your training program is addressing those. So if you're in a shoulder intensive, I work with a lot of athletes in shoulder intensive sports, and we're constantly doing rotator cuff strengthening. We're strengthening the rotator cuff. That's a small area where muscle groups are taking a lot of stress, that if you don't shore them up, they're going to get hurt over time. Our hip injuries common, our back injuries common. If back injuries are common in your sport, doing activities that decompress your spine, making sure you have flexible hips, they're not pulling on your spine like that. So we call that kind of training prehab, and that's taking the common injuries that you almost know are going to happen in a sport, right? You almost know are going to happen in sport. In hockey or football, you know that you're going to be at risk of a concussion. So what can we do to strengthen the shoulder, strengthen the neck, stabilize the trunk for impact? Prehab means you're building something up before something bad happens. So you got to make sure that you're doing that, and hopefully, if you do enough prehab, you don't end up in rehab. I haven't had any crazy injuries. I've had one torn rotator cuff, but outside of that, I've managed to avoid a lot of at least greater injuries. And that you're always going to come as an athlete. You're always going to come into a little bit of overuse here and there, but you should definitely be managing that. And I'm disappointed to see, especially a Canadian, but to see the best athletes not be able to go out and compete because of injury. So take those 3 Qs. Make sure you're sticking with them in your program. Give me a shout, Jordan at vejathletics.ca, if you want help working out a training program, working with athletes of all sports. I'll see you guys next time. Vej Athletics.